I'm Ian Brown. I'm the author of 60, a diary of my 61st year, which is a diary of the time between my 60th birthday and my 61st birthday. It's an attempt to describe what it's like to start aging. I've thought a lot about why I wanted to write a book about turning 60. And I'm still not sure if it was a way of putting off aging or a way of slowing it down. There are generally two traditional approaches. There's the approach of poets and philosophers and novelists who lament aging. They're very aware of the coming of death and the short duration of our stay on Earth and how that shortness actually makes everything so spectral and fantastic. And that's great, but it's kind of dreary. And on the other hand, you've got all this self-help literature, sexy at 60 or, younger, tomorrow kind of thing. And that stuff, it's go, 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 and frankly, delusional, as from what I can see. And I was waking up every morning and I didn't know whether to be rah, rah, I'm sexy at 60, or say, oh no, I'm not sexy at 60, and I want to go right back to bed and the permanent sleep. And I was so thrown, and I couldn't predict which way I would go. And, some of my body was starting to feel older, but some parts of my mind felt even younger. So I thought if I kept a diary, a day-by-day record of time going by, I might be able to notice some of the details of time passing, and in noticing them, slow the passing of time down, at least slow it down enough to notice it. I think that's what I was trying to do, though it took the whole book for me to figure that out. I didn't talk much about working at the Globe and Mail, where I'm a roving feature writer, because, well, for a bunch of reasons. One is the life of a journalist is a very peculiar thing. You're always walking around talking to other people. It's not all that noteworthy, really. The people you talk to are noteworthy, but you yourself, it's just a bunch of conversations. So that was one thing. The other thing was that most of the time when I write a story, even for the Globe, I probably would be writing it even if I didn't work at the Globe. So I keep notes about all kinds of things that I notice that affect me, and then I turn them into Globe and Mail stories. So the process of what I write about, I'm generally writing about it anyway, even though I do later write about it for the Globe and Mail. Reading Karl Ove Knausgaard or which I write about in the book. I wrote about him in the Globe, but I was reading him and thinking about him and making notes about him, keeping a diary about reading him before I decided to put it into the Globe. I think a life of a writer is one thing, that's pretty rarefied. The life of a journalist is even more rarefied. And being 60, what I wanted to write about in being 60 was not the rarefied stuff. It was the stuff that everybody noticed, the common stuff that, I might feel, and that somebody who's a guy building a building or somebody who's driving a taxi might feel just as much as I would. I spend a lot of time in the book, or a fair amount of time in the book, wondering about my successes, whether they're real, whether I've accomplished anything. There is a part of the book that's kind of neurotic in that way, and a lot of people have pointed this out to me and asked me why I would feel this. I have this published book. I won the Charles Taylor Prize with my previous book. I've had I have a job. I'm getting paid in journalism, a business that's contracting. So I'm very lucky in a lot of ways. And one could say I have nothing to complain about. But the truth of the matter is that even people who have nothing to complain about find something to complain about, and that the joys and pains of human existence, and especially of coming to the end of human existence, which is what my book is about, they afflict all of us equally. And an unlucky person has moments of joy and grace as well. So I suppose one could say they're neurotic, but they don't feel neurotic to me. That You spend your life as a writer. You don't make very much money. You know, you don't know whether you'll be forgotten in a day or 3 days. You don't know whether what you've spent all this time and passion and care learning and doing will really amount to anything. I mean, I know T.S. Eliot, and I'm not making any comparisons, but T.S. Eliot was once asked as a young man, you know, somebody interviewed him and he said, you know, I really don't know sometimes what the point of poetry is, just moving words around on the page. And then somebody interviewed him at the end of his life, after he'd been acknowledged as one of the greatest poets of the 20th century. And they said, you know, they reminded him that he'd said this when he was 18. They said, do you still feel the same way, that maybe it was all a waste? And T.S. Eliot, of all people, said, he said, well, there may be honest poets who feel differently, but I still do not know whether all of this has amounted to anything. I mean, if T.S. Eliot can feel that, I think the rest of us are allowed to have the odd doubt. But we tell ourselves we shouldn't because we're in denial about all this. You know, we're getting old. Oh, I'm not. I'm perfectly fine. You know, it's like John Barrymore's last words. I've never felt better in my life. You know, we're in denial about that. We don't want to ask these questions about whether we lived properly or not, or whether you can even ask that question. I think those are important questions. I thought it was important to ask them, as embarrassing as it is to reveal that I ask them of myself. My name's Ian Brown. I'm the author of 60.